Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing a lot better after a win over the Colts,
Yeah.
Drew. I can tell you that right now. It's
Winning,
nice to get that win.
winning is sweet. Thursday night road games, they're sweet too. They're not sweet coming back because you're tired and all that stuff, but it's like a
Yes. Oh,
it's
man.
like a grenade to the work week. It's because you got Wednesday becomes like a Saturday,
Oh,
Thursday is a game day. It's just different. It's fun.
yeah.
And granted, I say it's fun because I'm not the guy who's gotten in a bunch of car crashes in an NFL game
Right.
on Sunday having to suit up again. So I recognize that, yes. But as someone who works for the organization, as a fan, it's awesome. I can't wait. It's Halloween. It's going to be cool.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot wait. I know you're going to have a good time. But what a win.
What a win.
Because think about it. You're 6-2 now.
Mhm.
Those guys are 500 at 4-4.
That's right.
Had they won, you'd have been tied with them at 5-3. 4 games over 500 seems a lot better and feels a lot better than being just 2 over and tied in first place. Massive, massive win. You've pointed out over the last week or so, especially in the Harris hits, you pointed out how astoundingly good this pass defense has been.
Yep.
And basically, they're holding opposing quarterbacks, one of whom is a perennial MVP candidate in Josh Allen.
Right.
The other one was the first overall pick in Caleb Williams. The other one was the first overall pick in Trevor Lawrence. And then you had the fourth overall pick last year in Anthony Richardson, holding them below water when it comes to completion percentage. You're sacking them at an alarming rate. And they have here inside NRG Stadium, you're doing these things.
Right.
And you're playing well on the road as well, but
Sure.
better here at home. And it's just been so much fun to watch. But think about this, John. First sweep in a long time of the Colts. And since the start of the 2013 season, when they've come here, they've beaten you 9 times. They've
That's right.
tied you another. And with the win on Sunday, that's just the third win over the Colts in the stadium since 2013. Banana. It wasn't much better before that either, but you had your way with them in 12 and 11
Yep.
and 10 here inside NRG Stadium. It's a lot of there are a lot of nice things going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's when you look at that win, you talk about all those things, Drew, and when you think about it from 2013, it's funny because I started doing the sidelines, as you know, in 2014.
Yeah.
We had not beaten Indianapolis in Indianapolis. We had not.
At that point, you had never done it in franchise history. And we've talked about that at length on this show. You and Mark always hit it up. Yep.
Since then, so I've done 11 games at Indy, 6-5.
Mm-hmm.
We won 6 games in that time frame in the 11 years.
Some big ones too, man. Like
huge ones.
The season ender last year was not the biggest. Well, it's probably the biggest, but it's not the only huge one. You've essentially gone there a time or other two where it's been for the AFC South.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a couple things that work when you start to kind of think about that. And I'll get to that in a second. But we've only won 3 times at home. We won in 16, and then we won in 19. And then we hadn't won at home in a while. Now, we had the tie in 2022, which kind of felt like a loss because you had a big lead against them. But then finished it up with a win at the end of the year, which ended up you won that game. And because you did, you had an opportunity to draft C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson at 2 and 3.
It's a franchise-altering victory.
It is. It really is. Now that fans look back and go, at the time, there were a lot of fans that were in my mess about it. Like, why'd you win that game? Anyways, you don't have to go through all that.
Right.
When I look at it from that perspective, that's, so that was my counting the playoff game. That was my 22nd Colts game, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time frame, they've had 3 and 6, 9 wins.
And I count that Colts win in the playoffs here.
Yeah, I mean,
mix that matters.
That absolutely matters. Yeah,
that's not getting.
That's I think it's 23 total games. And when you look at how the rivalry started from 02 to 2010,
yeah, you had one of the greatest to ever do it, just having his way with.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a decade.
And since then, you've at least splits and sweeps. And look, there were some rough years. 2021, I mean, those 2 games were rough. 2020, you were right there at the end and fumbled both times at the 2-yard line in games that were like a week apart, 2 weeks apart.
You decided not to cover Jonathan Taylor.
Jeez.
For a pass.
Yeah, there's that. So there's been some gut punches. And so when you get one against the Colts, and it's 23-20. And I know throughout the game, it was funny because it had kind of very similar feel to the first one. Like in the second half, we got a 2-score lead. Hey, they come back and they score.
Yeah.
We get a 2-score lead again. They come back and score.
That cushion was nice. That cushion was nice, man.
The cushion was nice. And then at the end, when it's 23-20 and you got to come up, the defense rose up. And I think D'Amico Ryans got the attention of his defense after the Green Bay game. Like, hey, you guys can play great and you're a great defense, but it doesn't matter if on the final drive they can go down and get a game-winning field goal. And that defense wasn't about to do that on Sunday against the Colts.
Think about it. We've seen some great defenses here.
Yes.
You got to include the inaugural team, Seth Payton.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a great defense.
Very good.
It doesn't get the recognition that it should because, it was an expansion team and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Great defense.
Great defense. 11,
I think that was historically the best defense you've had. 12 was good for the first 5 games when you had Cushing going. And then the 16 team.
16, number 1 overall.
Outstanding.
Statistically, yep.
I've never seen, it's still early. I've never seen a defense do to quarterbacks, though, what this one's doing after it. Now, we got to let this season play out. I'm not planting a flag or anything yet, but goodness gracious, they're doing some things.
Yep.
And it feels good. All right, let's raise a Modelo because in addition to the good times there against the Colts, you're headed to New York for a primetime game. And when you play in primetime in New York, the Texans, you've won. You've done it twice. It was Monday Night Football in 12.
Yep.
You beat them up good. It was a 3:00 game in 18, but it was the only game on because it was a Saturday game in December.
That's right.
And you beat them there. That was a close game, actually, but you beat Sam Darnold and the Jets. Head coach was Todd Bowles. Third time, we're looking to make it a charm. And for that to happen, you're going to need some cream of the crop award-winning players. Last week, you and I went through this, and I think we were pretty prescient. I chose Tank Dell. I thought he was going to be a cream of the cropper. Caught a touchdown. That worked out well. You chose the offensive line being cohesive. Now, could the offensive line play better? Sure. Could Tank Dell have done better? Sure. But the O-line, for its troubles, and there were some troubles, but the O-line was able to have and help pave the way for a 100-yard rusher again in Joe Mixon, which that's another thing we could talk about. But they did that, and they let C.J. Stroud, they allowed him enough time to throw for almost 300 yards, 285 yards. So, yes, they could play better. We acknowledge that, but let's also, like D'Amico Ryans said, let's also point out some of the good things. So, for a cream of the cropper this week, I'm going to go with a guy. I want to go first, and I'm going to go with a guy who's kind of stood up, and they're shaking the rust off of him, and they're putting some WD-40 on him, and I think we see some more this week from Denico Autry.
I thought once you said I was like, okay, I think that's what's coming.
Had a pass deflection. He broke up a pass, hit the quarterback, and there's a lot going on. But I think we see a little bit more friskier version of Denico because he's a little healthier than everybody right now. He's a little fresher than everybody. Yes, there is rust, but there's also a degree of freshness. Look out for me for Denico Autry. And you know what? I got to pause and rewind because cream of the crop, courtesy of Macho Man Randy Savage.
Macho Man.
The cream of the crop.
Thank you, Macho Man. It's always good to have you on the program. Rest in peace. But Denico Autry, the defensive lineman, is my choice. I think if the Texans are flying back in the wee hours of Friday morning on November 1st with a victory, it's going to be in part because Denico Autry has done some nice things. So with all that in mind, who's your choice? Who do you got? You like that Denico choice? I
do like that. I think that Denico adds a different element to the pass rush.
He's nasty, man.
Because he can rush from anywhere, which I find fascinating. I love the fact that he can rush from anywhere. You wouldn't need him outside. Somebody gets banged up inside. Whatever the case might be, he can jump into those roles. And especially against Aaron Rodgers this week, who has not shown to be the most mobile. He's coming off, obviously, an Achilles from last year, Achilles injury. He's also 41. So if you can get after him and make that tough. So I'm going to go back to kind of a little bit of the well that I went to last week. And I've got a group, sort of.
All right.
So, and there's a reasoning for this.
I think I know the group you're choosing.
So last year when we played these guys, CJ Stroud had 91 yards passing. And it was a tough day. One of the things that I thought was evident in that game was how much we missed Tank Dell. Tank had gotten hurt the week before against the Broncos. He had broken his leg. That was the first game we played without him, and the passing game went to you know what. Nico caught, I think, the first pass of the game, the second play of the game, and then was out for the rest of the game. So the rest of the game, you played with John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Noah Brown, and I don't believe you even had Robert Woods in that game.
I think you're right.
What I know about these Jets, defensive backs in particular, I've written this in Sauce Gardner's draft review. When I started scouting Sauce many years ago, it's the first thing I wrote down. I was like, he is going to get flagged because he plays the game like a WWE wrestler. And his cohort, DJ Reed, who I think is maybe the most underrated corner in the league, does the same thing. Now, he's a little smaller and feistier. Michael Carter is the nickel, same thing. Now, Carter and Reed run pretty well. I think Sauce runs pretty well too. But they get away with holding, grabbing, clutching, and I think it disrupted every receiver not named Tank Dell last year. Now, there's no Noah Brown. He's catching Hail Marys in Maryland.
And good for him, man.
A guy was so happy for him to see that he was the one that caught that. That was great. And Noah was great.
Good Texan.
He's just a good dude, and people remember him. It's one of those where it's like, you know what? There just wasn't room in the receiver core at the time, and it gave Noah an opportunity. I was happy for him. So my cream of the crop, long story short, is everybody not named Tank Dell.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tank's got to step up too, but it's those receivers, Mechie especially, and then Woods coming back in, going back to the scene of the crime, if you will, against a team that wants to beat them up. And our guys are going to have to answer with violence. They're going to have to answer with football violence, getting off their routes, chopping hands, really being demonstrative. They can't just kind of float through the zone. When the ball is in the air, they have to attack the ball with two hands, snatch it, bring it to their body. Those are things we know Nico Collins does. Those are things that we see from Stephon Diggs. And we have not heard anything about Steph at this point when we're recording.
Right.
So we don't know what his status
when
is.
We're shooting this,
Yeah, so we don't anticipate seeing him. So those receivers have got to step up, but it's those things that I want to see from them in particular. Run good, crisp, clean routes, but they're going to beat you up. And with no Diggs, no Nico, they're going to feel like, hey, we're going to load up man-to-man. We're going to dare the officials to call holding and pass interference on us all game long, and we're going to send additional people at C.J. Stroud. So I think the cream of the croppers, those guys have got to come up big. Huge. They've got to come up. Now, I didn't put Tank Dell in that group. Tank's got to do those things too, but I think Tank is, he's the guy that can break the Jets back. Well, but I think it's the other guys that have got to step up because of that game they played last year.
It's an excellent point you're making. It's an excellent choice you make as far as the wide receivers. There are many, many similarities to this game against the Jets compared to last year's game against the Jets. We came into this game, everyone was down on the Jets. You're finished. You're cooked. You have no chance.
Yes.
Zach Wilson was starting again, and there was zero confidence in Zach Wilson.
Season's over.
He played the greatest game of his career.
Mm-hmm.
He was fantastic.
Yep.
You came in. You had just lost a great receiver the week before to injury in Dell, like you mentioned.
Yep.
You've just done that with Diggs. Like you said, as of the shooting, don't know what the future holds, but I think it's safe to say clearly he's not going to suit up Thursday night. You don't have that, but you're much better armed in general, both sides of the ball, but in general at the receiver spot, like you're mentioning. And while Devin Singletary was excellent last year,
that's right.
Joe Mixon I've never seen a start like this to a Texans team. Even Arian Foster didn't do this to the start of his Texans tenure. I mean, it's remarkable. When he starts and plays in a game, Joe Mixon cracks 100 yards, gets you a touchdown or two.
That's right.
He's getting yards from scrimmage. Only two guys in the entire NFL have more scrimmage yards per game, meaning you run and you catch the ball on offense, than Joe Mixon. He's at like 123.6 per game. You can count on Joe Mixon to get you that much yardage. It's phenomenal. And that's an equation changer for this week in New York, because you think about history and you think about it's so recent. It's less than a year ago.
Yeah, less than a year ago.
But it's like, oh yeah,
well, September of last year.
We still got Tank Dell and we got some players, and we didn't have the run game clicking like it's clicking now. And on top of that, C.J. Stroud has a little bit more seasoning under his belt.
That's right.
So I feel a little bit better about it. And I'm excited. I can't
Well, I'll
wait.
tell you, when it was interesting talking to D'Amico Ryans, and I was going to kind of throw the line out in the water to see if I could just get. I wasn't sure how he'd respond, basically. So I was like, all right, I'm fishing a little bit. I wanted to kind of get him to talk about discuss whether last year's game left, some memories, some scars, if you will. He looked at me and he was like, "Oh yeah,
Hell yeah,
I
it
totally
did.
remember that game last year."
And a lot of those all those players that played in it do too.
Exactly. So I think they're going to be reminded of that.
Won their best effort, and
And I mean, look, that game was 14-6 early in the fourth quarter, and then of course Jets, at that point make it 30-6. So it just looks, and it's funny too, Drew, because that was a game that felt ugly at 14-6, but man, we get a stop, we get the ball back.
Yeah.
You never know what can happen. Then they go and score. Then we got to keep going for it. Then CJ gets knocked out. We got to keep going for it. So they end up tacking on more points to make it 30-6.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's kind of like
it was the win of the season for them.
Yeah. But they beat us by 3. Oh, they got destroyed. They got this. But nobody remembers it was 14-6 in the fourth quarter with a chance to get a stop when you haven't played all that well. And I bring that up because 23-20 the other day against the Colts. Oh, they didn't beat the Colts by enough points. It's like, you had to settle for field goals a couple times because a few things were off. You think about games this year that could have been 2 touchdown, even 3 touchdown games, and just played it too close. Some things happened. Cam Akers fumbled against Chicago. You had other opportunities where you settled for a field goal at the end of the game, things like that. So that game was miserable for a lot of different reasons. But I think because it became 30-6, it became even more so of a sore spot for D'Amico and the organization. So hopefully go up there on Thursday, leave on Wednesday, play on Thursday, and do something that you haven't done in a while. And that's beat the Jets. Last time was 2018, as you mentioned, an afternoon game. Hop had a great catch to put us ahead, ended up knocking out Sam Darnold, not knocking him out, but finally slowing him down to win that game. So it's been 6 years since we've beaten him up there. We haven't won a game up in MetLife since 2018. I think those are the only 2 we've won at MetLife in 2012 and 2018, as you talked about.
They are.
So
we won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
12, 15 here, and then 18 there.
So it's time to go get a new streak started up there at MetLife.
I would like that. All right, John, you brought up DeAndre Hopkins. That December when that game happened in 18, every Friday, a good friend of ours would come into my office and say, probably not going to see DeAndre this weekend.
Yeah.
He's too banged up. They're going to work him out before a game.
Right.
Probably not going to see him. And every Sunday he would work out pre-game
and ball
go
out,
catch about 8 passes, 9 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown, and just keep going. And he tough as beef jerky, man.
Yep.
DeAndre Hopkins, in addition to being an all-world receiver, tough as nails. So yeah, you just brought up a nice little memory there. Anyhow, this has been In the Lab, presented by Xfinity, and we appreciate you watching or listening. But it's been the 3 of us, me, John, and you. So thank you so much for being a part of it, and we'll do it again next week, hopefully with a 7-2 Texans team to talk about. Cool with you? It's cool with me. It's cool with you, John, right?
It's cool with me, of course.
All right. Stay cool. Bye.